May I respect to Venerable Patham Vachiramuni, Director of Vipassanā Dura Institute, Maha Chulalongkorn Raja Vidyalaya University. Good afternoon to all of Vipassanā practitioners and also participants in this room. Today we will listen to the Dhamma talk in English by Venerable Pācān Sujan from Vārapanya Meditation Center, Scotland, United Kingdom. That he is very kind for us and coming again today to sharing the Dhamma or some knowledge to our how to practice Vipassanā. And now he is in this room and ready for sharing the Dhamma to us. And I would like to invite Pācān Sujan from Vārapanya Meditation Center, United Kingdom, to talk the Dhamma in this afternoon program. And please, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hear you, sir.
Okay. So how long am I going to speak?
1 hour.
Okay, thank you. Namatho Ratanatayassa. May I pay respect to the Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to Prathamma Vachiramuni, the director of Vipassanā Institute, and Venerable Mahasangha, and all the participants in this retreat. So I am very glad to be here with you all. Some of you have seen me, and some of you probably are new. And I gathered that there are almost 200 participants attending this retreat. So it's quite a opportunity that we have this opportunity to practice despite of such a difficult time. And I gathered that today is fourth day or fifth day, a fifth day. So that means halfway already gone, right? And meanwhile, I believe that you all have been practicing diligently, gain some samadhi and also insight. In the Anguttara Nikaya, book of 4, is a quite interesting Buddha mentioned about the study and the practice. And Buddha said that Cattārome bhikkhave kālā, katame cattāro, katame cattāro. There are 4 different times. What are the 4 times? Kālena dhammassavanaṃ, kālena dhammasākacchā, kālena samatho, kālena Vipassanā, ime ko bhikkhave cattāro kālāti. Now here, Buddha is basically saying that there are 4 times that we have to be conscious of. And the first Buddha is saying that kālena dhammassavanaṃ. This means the time for listening to the Dhamma. Now here, time for listening to the Dhamma is the first one. And the second one, kālena dhammasākacchā, the time for discussing the Dhamma. And kālena samatho, the time for serenity. And kālena Vipassanā, the time for insight. So with this, we can understand that the study of the Dhamma or the teachings of the Buddha, it has to go together, all these four, in order to gain good knowledge and good understanding, and that lead to the liberation. Now we have to understand that what does the kālena dhammassavanaṃ means. And here kālena dhammassavanaṃ, basically it comes with the system of education that the Buddha laid down, that is pariyatti, patipatti, and pativeda. So study, investigate, and practice, and then get the knowledge, understanding. That's why when we look at that aspect of the kālena dhammassavanaṃ, and this also comes in the Mangala Sutta, the highest blessings, if you may remember. And in that, a Buddha said the benefit of listening a Dhamma is asuttam sunati. We will be able to hear, or we will be having opportunity to hear things that we have never heard before. And I believe that there are so many other venerable masters have been teaching the Dhamma and teaching different aspects of how to practice and how to realize the Dhamma and how to practice understanding these sabhavas. And these sometimes we never heard before. And hearing that, we realize, that is. And also way of the practice. Oftentimes we are very attached to our own way of a practice. Our own way that we have been practicing, and we are very attached to it and perceiving that that's the only way. But after hearing the teachings, sermons from different monks, we get more understanding that no, this is not the only way. There are so many ways. There are so many ways. Even in the time of the Buddha, Buddha used so many tactics and techniques to enlighten different people in different times. Each individual had a different object of a meditation. And yet, because of their temperament, Buddha gave them the different techniques and eventually attained the Nibbana. So similarly, we will be able to clear our mind. We will be able to clear what we have been observing or what we have been holding on to, the perception. So that's why I always take a whole Buddha's teaching is simply changing our perception. And that changing perception lies on listening the talks, listening the hearing, listening the sermons. And that's why the second benefit of listening the talk or the discourses is suttam pariyodapeti, clarifying things that we have already known, checking, understanding that, and become more clear. And further on, we may have some doubts on the teachings or on the knowledge that we already have. And it dispels, by hearing the teachings, the sermons, it dispels any doubts that we have. So that's called kanham vihanati. Not only that, initially we used to have perception that the practice that I have been practicing is the only path, only path, or the one will fade away. Like a ditthing ujung karoti. So we will have the right understanding about the Dhamma. Some of you already know me, that I have told the story that how I came to Buddhism and how I practiced and how much I was attached to one technique for such a long time. I was very argumentative with other techniques, and I always believed that the technique that I was practicing is the only path that in line with the satipatthana, and that also leads to the liberation. And until I joined the university, Mahachula University, and practiced meditation, and eventually I realized that I was attached to that perception, that concept, and I was perceiving it so dearly, and able to overcome from that perception of this is the only path, this is the only way, this is the only right one. So that's why I believe that we all have a different grown up or different ways practicing. So rather than perceiving only one technique, just open up yourself and see that what's in there. Do not be like a glass full of water. Be a half full glass of water, so that you can add a little bit more onto it. And with that, that will strengthen our view. And that leads us to gain the sammā. And sammā is very, very important part. Without having a sammā, it would not be helpful, or it would not lead us to the liberation, because sammā is the first factor in the path, the Eightfold Noble Path that leads to the liberation. And that also gives us calmness of the mind. We become a very welcoming to all others. We'll have an opening mind, opening heart. Called a chittamasa pasidati. Calming the mind and bringing the happiness. So that is the result of the first time that the Buddha spoke about. So that's why it's a very important that do not neglect listening the talk. And when you are listening, you need to listen it carefully, attentively, and pay undivided attention to it. Do not disregard the Dhamma at all. So as a good listener, what we have to do is that do not look down upon any subject. Whatever subject is there, listening it very carefully, contemplating on that very carefully. And meanwhile, do not look down on the levels of a speaker, the knowledge of that speaker. We never know. Sometimes people can be behaving very awkward, and then, but they possesses a very deep knowledge. Like 3 weeks ago, I was traveling in the mountains after a long time of this COVID-19, we were not allowed to go out. We were quarantining. And then last 3 weeks ago, it's freed. So I went to camp in the Scottish mountains, Highlands, and which I normally do every year for a couple of days, staying in the mountains. And the Scottish mountains are very beautiful. And the Scottish mountains are very safe. There is no big animals. There is no even snakes. So it's very safe. And wherever you go, there is a pathways leading to one to another place, and people will be walking a lot. So again, this year, I also went with another monk and 2 fellow friends. And we met with one very strange guy. He's retired, 72. And he said that the world is so troublesome. If you stay in the city, you have to pay rent, you have to pay bills. But if you stay in the mountains, everything is free. Yeah, everything is free. And he said that he has been living in the mountains since the spring. So it's already 3 months, and he's going to stay another 3 months in the mountains. So he's like a proper mountain man. And he's hiding all around. And one question I asked him, what do you do? One question I asked with a very enthusiastic, interesting question. What do you do? And it's very interestingly, he said, you are asking a farmer's question to a wanderer. Right? You are asking a farmer's question to a wanderer. Do you understand? That means a farmer always have to think what he's going to do. But the wanderer, he doesn't have to think. He just wanders. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. He just enjoy the nature. And this is a profound teachings that he gave. And he realized that. And I was contemplating on that throughout the time. Even now, I'm still thinking of that. That I, as a wanderer, as a monk, I should be having no responsibilities. I should be having no responsibilities and nothing to do. I should be just pursuing myself to the practice and just be free from all these responsibilities. But it is not. As a monk and also as a chief monk or the abbot of the center, so many responsibilities comes in. Responsibilities of running the temple, responsibility of teaching the junior monks, and responsibility of teaching the other people, and also counseling, welcoming, so and so, even the gardening. And with this, sometimes it again against the what the Buddha was saying. You have to be less engagement in order to gain the enlightenment. So it seems like I don't have any qualities to be enlightened in the future because of too many works. So remember, all you are here attending this retreat, making sure that you don't have much responsibilities so that you can gain more insight. And if you can go further, sooner to gain enlightenment, off you go. So that's the second good listener's quality, that do not ever look down upon the speaker's level of understanding. And meanwhile, do not ever look down on yourself too, that I don't understand. I don't have this knowledge. I can't do it. These sort of I don't, never have it. You can try. You say, okay, I will try. I will do it. How far I can do. Like in the practice of a meditation, you are requested to Pay attention to on rising and falling of abdomen. How many times you can watch and observe this rising and falling of abdomen, and how many times your mind goes off. And then sometimes you may have a thought saying, oh, this rising and falling of abdomen is not my cup of tea, doesn't fit with my temperament, I can't concentrate. So do not look down upon. Just open yourself and see that, okay, why don't I try a little bit? Why don't I try a little bit? And with that, what happens is that there is a motivation to practice furthermore. That generates the itipada, 4 itipadas, chanda, virya, chitta, vimamsa. And you will be working towards it. And every possible success will be yours. And meanwhile, the further on, not only that you are not looking down upon yourself, but also paying good attention to the subject or to listener, what he is or she is speaking about. If you have a good listening mind, listening heart, then you can gain a lot of knowledge. And then after that, again, furthermore, what we have to do is reflect wisely, manasikara, reflecting whatever we have heard, whatever we have listened, whatever knowledge that we have acquired. And this wise reflection is quite important. It leads to even to the sotapanna, says the Buddha. One of the qualities to gain or attainment of a sotapanna is wise reflection, manasikara. And sometimes after we are hearing the teachings, reading the books, and we accumulate the knowledge and we think that that is the truth and we hold on to it. And that can be a danger. So that is the reason Buddha is encouraging us to have dhammasākacchā, kālena dhammasākacchā, the time for discussing the Dhamma. So we have to discuss the Dhammas to one another. And that comes here, sharing your experiences to the teacher. You are explaining what have you been practicing, what have you achieved, what have you understood, and then telling it to your master. And he will be there to clearing your doubts. And meanwhile, you will be there to question further on. And it's not a debate that you are thinking to gain or win this competition, but you are thinking of clearing your doubts. So that's why the second is kālena dhammasākacchā. And I believe that these two you have been doing quite a lot. You've been doing quite a lot. Now the third time, this is called the third timely kālena samatho. Kālena samatho. Now, this is the practice of a samadhi, practice of a meditation. And as we know that the practice of a meditation, it gives at least for 4 different benefits, and which also comes in the Anguttara Nikaya Samadhi Sutta. Anguttara Nikaya book of 4 in Samadhi Sutta, Buddha clearly mentioned that a person who practiced the samadhi, and here samadhi means whatever we have wisely reflected, manasikara, and then manasikara on the teachings, and then whatever that conclusion comes, we will be reflecting on that, investigating on that, and then contemplating on that. With that, we are gaining the samadhi. And the first benefit that the Buddha talked is the ditta dhamma sukha vihara. And that is the samadhi that leads to the pleasant abiding in the here and now, in the present moment. So we will have a pleasant abiding. That is the first benefit. Second benefit is jnana dassana patilabhaya. We will gain, or we will attain, this knowledge and a vision. And here you will be able to see that as you are practicing meditation, the more you're able to pay attention to your abdomen rising, falling, it brings joy and happiness. It brings joy and happiness. And each time when you are able to attain that, gradually what you are doing is basically collecting your mind to that object. Unification of this scattered mind on that object, become a one-pointed awareness. And as you develop this one-pointed awareness, what happens is that not only gaining the samadhi, further on you will be able to develop up to the 4 jhanas. Vitakka vichara piti sukha ekaggata. You will be able to develop those. And attainment, the highest pleasant abiding in the present moment, according to the sutta or the Buddha, is the attainment of the 4 jhanas, that we will be able to attain that. And attainment of that will be very helpful. So even to the, we can develop that from there to the Vipassanā. And here the second benefit is jnana dassana patilabhaya. Labhaya means gain. Patilabhaya, gaining. Jnana dassana. So we will be attaining the knowledge and vision. A knowledge and vision about what you're doing. We will be able to understand it. That rising and falling is, it can be a samatha and vipassana, and it is just a method. Although you may realize that this is not taught in a Tipitaka. Yes, there's so many things not taught in a Tipitaka in the practice of a meditation. And yet these are the tools that developed for us to practice and lead us to the meditation. And we will gain that knowledge and understand it. And the third benefit that Buddha was talking here in the Anguttara Nikaya, same book, book of 4 in the Samadhi Sutta, Sati Sampajanyaya, to gain, which leads to that Samadhi leads to the mindfulness and clear comprehension. And here is very important. We will be able to see that this Sati and Sampajanya, able to see that how the feelings arises and how long it remains and how it is vanishing. Seeing the arising, the nature of arise and remains and the vanish. It is called upadi titi bhanga. เกิดขึ้นตั้งอยู่ดับไป Upada arises, remains and vanished. We will be able to see that feeling, how it arises. Not only the feelings, but also perception of things. We will be able to comprehend that, and even the wisdom. Now, as we are practicing meditation, we will be able to see how it is rising. Rising of abdomen, how it is rising, how long that remains, and how it vanishes. We will have that knowledge, we will have that understanding. And the way we perceive it as it rises, again, we will be able to comprehend it as well. Perceiving it, that how am I perceiving the rising process of the abdomen? As the stomach rises, we will be able to perceive it. And some people will perceive the actual movement of it, and some people will be perceiving it as the vayodhatu, the air element, as it rises and as it remains and falls. So this perception itself, again, we need to understand that sankhara, the conditioned aroused. So rather than holding on to that perception, we will have a right understanding that sabbe sankhara anicca. All conditioned things are anicca, impermanent. We will not be attached with it and not holding on to it. And that's how that gives us the clear understanding. That gives us the rise of the wisdom. Okay? Rise of the wisdom. And we will gain the wisdom. And we will be able to see that how far that lasts. And as we gain the wisdom, what happens? That the fourth benefit of the meditation we will gain, that is called āsavānaṃ khayaṃ. So vanishing of all the asavas, all the taints. Whatever taints that we have, it will be eradicated. So that is the reason why we are practicing meditation. And this practice of a meditation is important to gain the knowledge, gain the understanding. And that's how Vipassanā clicks in. The fourth that the Buddha taught, the time is the kālena Vipassanā. Now it's time to reflect on a Vipassana, and with that we will gain further knowledge. And Vipassana is again not what we do. I always take it that the Vipassana is not what we do. Vipassana is a result of what we do. So result of the practice of satipatthana, satipatthana is the path. Now Vipassana is the result. As we pay attention to the kaya, vedana, citta and dhamma, gradually understanding of this phenomena is a result. So that's a Vipassana, seeing things clearly as they are. And taking out this ignorance about it, that anicca and sukha and atta, the permanence, the happiness and the self. That delusional state, we are abolishing it from us. And our mind becomes very illuminated. So we are not in a delusional state. And that's how we will gain the proper Vipassana understanding of it. And this practice of a Vipassana meditation that we are practicing here in Mahachula is basically paying attention to the abdomen. And in this practice, what we are doing is, the first is simply aware of your sitting body. Aware of your sitting body. Free yourself from all other activities, and which here comes in the Satipatthana says that aranyagato va rukkamulagato va sunyākāragato va. Now this is basically here we can apply into ourselves in these days, that aranyagato va, going to the forest, living under the tree or in an empty hut, is basically the purpose of that is to gain non-distraction places. There's a quiet place and there is no distractions. And here you can have it. And here all what we need to do is free yourself from every activities that you are doing. Free yourself from whatever you are doing, but solely paying attention to the practice, dedicating yourself to the practice. And with that, what happens? You are free from every activities, and your mind also free. Physically you are free, mentally you are free. And this moment, all what you have is the mind playing games. And as we know, mind needs an object to occur. Now, if we are physically doing something, then obviously our mind is concentrated in that. Our mind is doing something, and with that, we are not paying attention to our own mind. Same thing, if you are speaking, that moment again, we are doing something, then our mind is not concentrated too. So that's why we will not be able to see this mind. Yeah? And the moment when we free from any other activities and every jobs or responsibilities that we have and dedicate ourselves to simply pay attention to it, then this moment you will gain more insight about your own mind. So free yourself from whatever you are doing. Yeah? So from now on, this 15 minutes, I would like to invite you all to practice meditation, and I will guide you through this meditation. Right? So sitting in a comfortable position, so choose a suitable place, suitable position. Free yourself from all other activities. And gently close your eyes, so you don't have to gaze the screen. So simply close your eyes and listen, attentively listening. Doesn't matter what's going on around, just leave aside for a while. This is time to practice. So bring your attention to the entire body that you are sitting. So sit comfortably and relax your position when aware of your sitting body. And making a resolution that you are not going to move. Sitting comfortably. And this moment, after you have gently closed your eyes, spend some time observing your body, the sitting body, aware of the sitting body, and observing the different sensations. What happens? And as you see, as you are not talking, as you are not doing anything, your mind begins to search to do something. And this moment, if you are paying attention to your bodily sensation, then you will realize that mind automatically grabs something which moving, which changing in our body, and that is the abdomen. And this abdomen is rising and falling whether you notice it or not. But the moment when you free any other activities, mind automatically settles in it, rising, falling. And when it is rising and when it is falling, all you need to do is simply consciously aware of it and making a mental note. So paying attentively, paying attention to it. So when you breathe in, normally the breath going in and this abdomen rises. So attentively noticing it as it is rising in a very relaxed way. You're not controlling, you're not holding, you're not regulating the breath to see this rising, falling. Feel the sensation of rise and perceiving the rising process as it is rising, and observe it. Similarly, when it is falling, noticing it is falling and paying attention to it, and with conscious awareness making a mental note, falling, falling, falling. So noticing as it is taking place, not as you want it to be. As it rises, making a mental note, rising, rising, rising. As it falls, making a note, mental note, falling, falling, falling. And it takes quite a lot of effort, a lot of dedication. There will be a moment you want to open your eyes, you want to move your hands. In this moment, you have to make firm resolution, adhitthana, that I am not going to move. I am not going to open my eyes. Doesn't matter what's going on. And this is another form of a practice. This comes to atapi, ardent. You are working with your mind. The mind says you to do, but you are not doing it. You are saying, no, this is a taming time. So you are taming your mind. You're taking control over this mind. So that's why do not open your eyes. Do not move your hands. Do not move your legs. Let's see whatever is happening. And then whenever that happens, come back to the rising and falling of abdomen. It's called noting distractions. At first, practice. At the beginning, these becomes a distractions because we are paying attention to the abdomen rise and fall. And whatever other objects arises, we take it as a distraction. But here, all what we are doing here, paying attention to the rising, falling of abdomen. As it rises, making a mental note, rising, rising, rising. As it falls, making a mental note, falling, falling, falling. And in case of a thought arises, do not fight with it, accepting its occurrence and acknowledging it and making a mental note. I normally use 4 words, observing it. Observe that your mind is distracted from the abdomen. Acknowledge that distraction and making a mental note. Thinking, 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 and then back to abdomen again. And remember, this is an initial stage of the practice, not the end. And there will be a moment you want to move your hands. There will be a moment you want to move your legs. Remember, you are taming your mind. These are simply the phenomena that arose, the feelings that arose. Now you are not responding it. We have been responding to our mind so long, every day, 24/7 days. And during this time, this little pain, little sensation, little itchiness, we should be able to bear it. There are many things that we can bear, bigger things. Why not this small thing? But this small thing, bearing of it, it gives us a samadhi, it gives us a wisdom. So whenever your mind is distracted, accept that your mind is distracted. Observing it, okay, observe, acknowledging and making a mental note. Thinking, thinking of pain, pain, itchiness, itchiness, and then back to the primary object, rising, falling. So feeling the rising and falling again and mindfully making a mental note. Rising, rising, falling, falling. And here one more thing that we need to be mindful of is that feeling the rising and falling is one thing, thinking about is another. So making sure that we feel it not by thinking. And we see the phenomena as it arises. And do not control. And do not regulate. See as it rises, as it falls. So rising, falling. So whatever is happening as you are paying attention to the stomach rising, falling, that's a present moment awareness. Whether you are thinking of about past or the future, but still happening here in the present moment. The rising, falling. And this rising and falling of abdomen, as your mind calms down, you'll be able to see that this process of a rising and falling of abdomen doesn't happen at the same place, doesn't happen in the same phase, same way. It's always changing in different ways. Even the movement, rising can be short and a long, falling can be short and a long. Then again, not thinking that this is long and this is short. This is smooth rising and the smooth falling. There's a stages of a rising, or it's not a rising in the same place and falling in the same place. But feeling about it, seeing and knowing as they appear, as they arise. So as it rises, as it falls, making a mental note. Making a mental note is so important that you are conscious of it, and that's how Vipassanā gradually develops. But if you are not making a mental note, then you simply just an observer. You haven't understood the reality. Each time when you make a mental note, it teaches us the impermanence of it. So rising, falling. And as your mind calms down further on, you will be able to comprehend that it is not just a rising. There is a rising, 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 rising. There is a series of a process going on. And then a falling, 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 falling. A series of a process going on too. And further on, as your mind calms down, you will be able to notice that as the abdomen falls completely, before it rises, there is a big gap. And after the rise, before the falling, there is a gap too. You'll be able to notice that. And in those cases, sometimes, if your mind is really going away and then distracted, then extending it a little bit more, sitting. So rising, 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 falling, 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 and sitting, sitting, sitting. Extending one more place to pay attention to. And as you develop your awareness further on, what happens is that there will be a sense of you are doing it, or you are observing it. Oftentimes you feel that you are doing it, and that moment you have to take away that doingness. The moment when you take away that doingness, then that moment you are in the present moment. You become the proper observer, realizing the reality. So taking that doingness in a practice, and you see the reality, the phenomena of a rising, falling takes place as it rises, as it falls, and how it functions. And here, one thing we have to remember that we are observing the phenomena as they appear, not as we want it to be. This is a very important sentence, the fact. We are observing whatever is happening, whatever phenomena arises as it is there, not as we want it to be. And as we are making a mental note, we have to make sure that that's exactly what's happening, synchronizing the process and your mental note, and repeatedly doing it again and again. There is no desire. The more you desire to see it, the more you desire to gain it, it goes further away, far away. But the moment when you simply become an observer and making a mental note of it, then the wisdom develops. So as you're sitting here, rising, falling, you can further on, rising, falling, sitting. You can further notice, am I doing it, or is it just happening and I'm noticing it? Take away that doingness and simply observe it. Observing the different phenomena of it. And making sure that you are not controlling the breath, not controlling or not regulating the process, simply observing as they are. And whenever any distractions arises, whether it is the thought, the feelings, the pain, the itchiness, or the sound that disturbs, simply paying attention to it, observing, acknowledging, noting, and let it go. And back to the abdomen. Back to abdomen again and again. And here we can use these 4 words: observing, acknowledging, noting, and let it go. In a practice, this is the initial practice to gain the samadhi and understanding of this technique. And here again, this rising and falling of abdomen is not the actual body part, but we are observing this phenomena of it. And again, we are not solely absorbed in it. We are open to any other sensations as well. So rising, falling. So with this, you can open your eyes and relax yourself. And thank you for practicing together and listening to me. And this is an hour, so I will end here. May you all be well and happy and successful. I will be coming back to another 2 days. So on the third day, if you have any questions, and then you may ask if we allowed. Okay, so thank you.
Sadhu. On behalf of Vipassanā Institute, Mahachula Longkorn Racha Vidyalaya